let's compare the Patriots and the Colts. So the Colts are unexpectedly, a little bit less unexpectedly, but unexpectedly nonetheless, a 7-2 team. They mortgage their future a little bit, certainly. And first of all, you believe that by trading for Sauce Gardner and giving up those picks, Daniel Jones is now their quarterback, correct?
Oh yeah, I would think that Daniel Jones is going to be their quarterback, regardless of what they did yesterday. Um, his deal is up after this season, but I can't imagine they're going to want to move on from him, and unless he continues to play, unless he stacks together games like he did against Pittsburgh, where he had three interceptions, lost a couple fumbles, it really brought back memories to, how he played with the Giants. But you know, every quarterback is entitled to a
Certainly.
game like that.
If I'm a
Yeah,
Colts
I
fan,
think
I'm
I
just a
think they're
little
in a
nervous.
good.
I'm just a little nervous that, oh wow, now we're really doing this. Not this season, but just like for the next couple seasons, where Daniel Jones is our guy. Um, but okay, so they went all in. They, like, we just had Bert Breer. That was Bert Breer saying that they
Mhm.
took a weakness and made it into a strength. The Patriots did nothing. Do you think both of those teams are similar? They have similar records, and how do you which way of doing business do you like better? The way the Patriots stood pat, or the way that the Colts gave up 2 first-round picks?
Well, I have to tell you this that I do think that Sauce Gardner is one of the more overrated players in the NFL.
Yes,
He does not get interceptions and he doesn't tackle. Now,
I'm aware.
he does not get a lot of opportunities because the Jets are been weak on the other side, so the quarterbacks have been staying away from him for the most part. But when they try to exploit him, they have some success. Listen, he's got a great nickname
Hmm.
and he had a tremendous rookie year a few years ago, but he hasn't played close to that level the last couple of years. And um, I don't think you're finding a lot of Jet fans that are crying about losing Sauce Gardner, to tell you the truth. They got really good value for him. A couple of years ago, they traded Jamal Adams to the Seahawks and got two number one picks, and this is very similar. But overall, I think Jet fans are just going, "Oh, here we go again."
I'm a Jet fan, and I am saying here we go again. But I can't complain about. I agree with you with Sauce Gardner, and I can't complain about the return. And I think the return they got from Quinn Williams is ridiculous. That I don't know what they're doing in Dallas, but that I thought that was like a haul that they couldn't turn down. So
Well, yeah, I think that's the way they felt. The Jets, basically held a dispersal draft yesterday, and they're now an expansion team. Lots of draft picks, a very weak roster. The Patriots are very fortunate they haven't played them yet because you can chalk those up as two victories. Um, so the Patriots will at least get to nine. I happen to think Quinn Williams is a really good player, and I host a radio show in New York now on Saturdays, and I had Jerry Jones on the second week of the season.
mm,
And when I asked him whether either of the New York teams had inquired about Micah Parsons, he volunteered to me. Obviously, he wasn't going to trade him to the Giants in the division, but he volunteered to me that he had spoken to the Jets and he asked for Quinn Williams and a number one pick for Micah Parsons. Well, 2 months later, he gives up a one and a two and gets Quinn Williams. So I knew that the Cowboys, really like Quinn Williams. And I think it was considering how weak the Dallas defense is, and they didn't give up number one in this coming draft, so they still have two number ones. And who knows what's going to be in 2027? Maybe the picks they're going to give up the better of their pick and Green Bay's pick, but who knows? They both could be in the 20s. So I thought, considering Williams is signed for a couple more years, I thought that was a good trade for the Cowboys because they are so weak defensively. And Quinn Williams is better than any player they can potentially have gotten, I think, defensively in the second round of the coming draft, which is the pick they gave up.
right, but it's just that Quinn Williams doesn't improve that defense enough to make them a playoff team this year, and then he's another year older, and it just seems like a lot to give up. If you're the Jets, certainly Quinn Williams was never going to play for a good Jet team, and I guess he wanted to be traded too, and he wanted to be
Yeah,
traded to
no, I think
Dallas.
he was. Yeah, I
So
think he was pretty unhappy here. He's
it,
never played on a winning team.
right, it just
It's been
seemed. it just seemed like the age of the player, you had just not signed Micah Parsons, who's obviously a much better defensive player than Quinn Williams. Quinn Williams, I think, is a really good player too. But it just at his age and where the Cowboys are, it seemed like a lot to me. That's all.
Well, it's Fred. It's not like he's 32. I think he's
Right.
27 or 28,
Right.
and I disagree with you a little bit on this. I think Dallas just has to keep stacking and find defensive players however they can. And I'm not necessarily counting them out of making a playoff run
Mm.
here. They're all. I mean, it was an aberration what happened to their offense the other night against Arizona. I didn't understand that, but if they can hold teams over under 25 points, they got a chance to win a lot of games because their offense, is really explosive. And Williams will help. They can't stop the run. Now they have him and Kenny Clark playing next to each other. I mean, that's not bad. The problem in Dallas is their secondary is horrendous. And if they can improve the pass rush a little bit, maybe that helps the secondary. But it is very bizarre what's happened with the Cowboys the last couple months. Uh, Clearly, there was a larger issue with Michael Parsons. I think it became a personality thing with him and Jerry Jones. Jerry didn't want to pay him. Now, Parsons wound up getting twice as much as Quinn Williams got when he signed his contract a couple of years ago. So the money issue, definitely factored in there as well.
It is kind of refreshing, though, to hear Jerry Jones talk about it. And you say all these things been going on in Dallas the last couple of months. He said yesterday, he's like, look, for me personally, I don't have a lot of time. So if you're asking me, what I'm doing this for, it's because I need to win. Essentially saying he knows that he's not going to be around physically that much longer. And if there's a chance for a deal to be made, he wants to do it because he wants the team to win.
Yeah, along those lines, and I've said this before, I might have said it on your show. Um, that's why I really thought he was going to hire Bill Belichick because they both, and this is a couple years ago. I thought that he should have fired McCarthy after Kraft fired Belichick and brought Belichick to Dallas because Jerry, despite the fact that everybody thinks he's just in it to make money and he's making a ton of money, I know him really well. I've known him since the day he bought the team in 1989, and he's extremely competitive. He really does want to win. He just doesn't know how to win without Jimmy Johnson. And I thought that he and Belichick would have been a good short-term match because they're at the same point in their lives. Belichick's about 10 years younger. Well, he would do anything to win, and he desperately wanted another job in the NFL. He didn't want to go to North Carolina, and I thought they would have been a good match. But I didn't see that quote that you just mentioned about Jerry saying, referencing his age. But he's in his early 80s, and I hope he lives for another 20 years. I mean, I really do like Jerry a lot, but the reality is that he's probably feeling a sense of urgency to win now. And like I said, they're 3-5-1. They can easily get on a run and make the playoffs. Now, I can't say easily. They have to jump over a bunch of teams, but I can see them getting on a run and making the playoffs.
All right, but back to I want to compare since I wanted the Jets were the big team yesterday,
Yeah,
and I'm a Jets fan,
absolutely.
and everyone's going to accuse me of talking about the Jets too much, and I'm very glad you're on and you have that insight. And I was aware that Jerry Jones had mentioned Williams to you, and it seemed like a pipe dream at the time. So,
Right.
what are you going to do? But so you see a team with the Colts that are going all in on this season, and then you see the Patriots who haven't done anything. In your opinion, should the Patriots have done something at all or something more bold, given where they are and where the AFC is this year?
Well, they did sign Jerry Rice's kid yesterday,
Yeah,
didn't
yeah, we don't want to overlook that.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Look at. I heard that Franco Harris's kid is out there as well, and we could do that.
Yeah, I think the Patriots, and you guys know better than me probably, I'm sure, that they needed a pass rusher. I mean, that would, if Trey Hendrickson was available, and all indications are, even though he never came to a long-term agreement with the Bengals and he's going to be a free agent after this year, he would have been a good, 8-game rental. But it didn't appear that the Bengals wanted to trade him. Miles Garrett, if he was available and they could have given up 2 1s for him, I would have done that if I was the Patriots. But Cleveland made it pretty clear they weren't going to trade him. I mean, who did you want them to get? I think in a way, when you're 7-2 and you don't make a move at the deadline, it's sending a message to the locker room that, we're happy with what we have and we think we can do some business with the team that's currently constructed. So in a way, that can work to the team's confidence. And you just, for making a comparison with the Jets, it just shows. I mean, the Patriots are down for 5 years in the post-Brady years, but it just shows what happens when you get a quarterback. And that's what all these trades were about for the Jets. Yes, they stockpiling picks to put themselves in a position to get a quarterback either this year or in 2027, which could be a better quarterback draft. It's all about getting a quarterback. And the Patriots got their quarterback, and everything else falls into place after you do that. And riding out what they have in that locker room when they've started the season 7-2 and have a chance to win the division and maybe get a first round bye. Unless there was a really impactful player out there who was available that they passed on, I can't really blame them for standing pat yesterday.
And it's
unless you can tell me a name that is available that they said no, the price was too high.
And to your point about not having a quarterback, the Jets had 3 first-round picks that they arguably hit on all of them a few years ago. With they got Gardner and they got Garrett and they got
Johnson,
Garrett Wilson, and they got Jermaine Johnson. And so what did that do for
Hall in the second round?
And Brees Hall at the beginning of the second round. So does Brees Hall want out of New York now that I have you on the phone? Does he want out, or do you think that he's in their long-term plans?
Well, I think this was a prove-it year for him. Unlike Wilson and Gardner, who got the extensions in July, they didn't offer an extension to Brees Hall, and they want he'd been banged up for a couple of years, but now he's one of their 2 or 3 best players that are left on the roster. It's possible they can franchise him after the year or look to sign him to a long-term deal. He's having a good season. He's a really good player. I can't. He has not expressed that he's wanted out.
Okay, because I've been hearing mixed things about that. That people are thinking that he was implying that he was unhappy. But I read it as his tweets were I'm pissed that these guys got traded. I'm not happy about that. More just as a human than anything else. But whatever.
Yeah, Gardner and Wilson, I thought they sent a strong message when they signed these deals in July. Because they could have tried to force their way out, even though one of them would have got franchised at some point. But they signed. Now they took the money, obviously, but they could have forced their way out if they really wanted to. So I thought that was a sign. Okay, the Jets are going to make sure they keep their best young players, and 3 months later, they trade Gardner. It really is reminiscent to me. In July of 2018, the Giants signed Odell Beckham to a 5-year, $95 million extension. And the following March, he was traded to the Browns. And, and it was 2 weeks after Dave Gettleman had said, we didn't sign Odell to trade him, and then he traded him. Well, this took even less time, from July to November, between signing Sauce to a $120 million extension to trading him for 2 first-round picks. It's just astounding that the Jets have now completely torn this team apart by getting rid of their 2 best defensive players and stockpiling draft picks for a general manager who was completely inexperienced before this draft. He's a first-time general manager, first-time head coach in Aaron Glenn. And basically they're saying they trust these guys. It's one thing to stockpile the picks. It's another thing to have Jimmy Johnson making the picks after that Herschel Walker trade. It's another thing to have Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn making the picks, and you have no idea whether they can pick the right players, if they can identify the right quarterback. This is putting complete faith in 2 totally unproven guys to make these picks that are going to shape the future of the franchise. And that's what's happened. The Jets got a huge haul yesterday. They picked up 3 1s and a 2. But I think what makes the Jet fans nervous is, okay, what are they going to do with these picks?
But why, with the success of Idzik and McCagnon, why would they feel this way? There's no precedent. No, it's the same thing every 4 years. It's the same thing.
I do want to say one other thing. I think where the Jets made a horrendous decision was in 2021. This is not a second guess because I said it beforehand. And it's been proven out. Zach Wilson was not good enough to trade Sam Darnold, who had only been in the league for 3 years. Um, they should have taken that pick and traded it like the Dolphins did with the pick that was like right after, I believe. They traded down a couple of times and got wound up with Jalen Waddle and Bradley Chubb out of that. The Jets should have held on to Darnold, who obviously has proven to be a vastly superior player to Zach Wilson. And instead of using that pick on Zach Wilson, they should have traded up. If they had a general manager who had a little foresight there, they just would have traded that pick around and gotten a haul then. And it was Joe Douglas who did that, who, proved to be, they loved Joe Douglas when they hired him and they couldn't wait to fire him. That's what I thought started the downfall and started the spiral. They didn't give Darnold enough time. They didn't put a team around him. They wound up drafting Zach Wilson. He was terrible. They had to bring in Aaron Rodgers. He tears his Achilles on his fourth play as a Jet. And, here we go again, a new regime now. Dumping all these players. They could have possibly traded Breece Hall and Jermaine Johnson and Quincy Williams yesterday. They just didn't get the offers they wanted. I mean, it could have been even more of a fire sale. And the fact now they're not calling it a teardown is an insult.
Oh, it's a teardown. It's a teardown. It's a teardown to get a quarterback. And you're right. Everyone in the media that I recall, or not everyone maybe, but you weren't alone. A lot of people liked Sam Darnold very much and just thought he didn't get a fair shot. He had Adam Gase as his coach. I mean, that's not ideal for him. So yeah, I think that you had a lot of foresight there, but I think that you were not alone in thinking that Darnold deserved better than he got in New York.
Listen, if they had wound up with the first pick in that draft, which was Trevor Lawrence.
Oh yeah.
Then I can potentially understand it, although Trevor hasn't, lived up to expectations.
But at the time, he seemed like generational, right?
Exactly. Zach Wilson. I mean, enough said about Zach Wilson. I mean, we see what he's become, and to think if you watch Sam the other night against Washington, he looked like the best quarterback in the league for the first. I mean, he played well the whole game, but he was unbelievable in the first half. And I'm going, I can't believe this is the same guy that played for the Jets, but he didn't have the coaching. I mean, he had Todd Bowles his rookie year, and then he had Adam Gase for a couple of years. And, Adam Gase has proven, he's just a horrible head coach. And
he's a horrible coach. Just overall, just a horrible coach.
And, I'll tell you what, I don't know if people in Boston know this, but the Jets can blame Peyton Manning on that one.
Yeah.
He called Woody Johnson was in London working for the president. Christopher Johnson was running the team. He didn't know what he was doing. Peyton Manning calls him up. He loved Adam Gase as his offensive coordinator in Denver. He'd just gotten fired by the Dolphins. I mean, who hires a coach that had just gotten fired within the division? I mean, Buffalo did that with Rex Ryan, but
a rare mistake by this organization, Gary. Exactly. A very rare mistake.
I mean, 15 years since they made the playoffs. They haven't had a winning season in 10 years. And here's the kicker to it all. Last week, so a week before the trading deadline, they send out season ticket renewal notices with nice increases.
Well, listen, Woody Johnson's got his finger on the pulse. Gary, we got to go. We're up against the commercial. But, Gary, appreciate it so much. Brady versus Belichick. The dynasty debate is out. Gary, thank you as always. We appreciate it.
Anytime for you, Fred. Take care.
All right, take it easy. There you go.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.